All right, good morning and welcome to Sidelines on this Wednesday, August 3rd. Wow, August 3rd already. Most everybody now is starting practice in the Southeastern Conference, college football, AAC, Sunbelt, AACC, Big 12, you name it. They're doing it. Rob Brown here with you. We'll be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. East of the Chattahoochee. Jimmy Hodge on his way down to Knoxville this morning, driving through Illinois and Indiana, Ohio, just on his way down there, right through the heart of Amish country. Should be some great stories there. We'll be talking with Doug Dean, AU Daily Dose out of Birmingham. He has a lot of great points and opinions, always likes to share with us, and a lot of great conversation there. In the second segment, Dan Mathews, executive producer of Chuck Oliver's show, Southern Sports Today, and 680 The Fan over in Atlanta will join us with a lot of good SEC talk. In segment 3, top of the second hour, we'll be joined by the coordinator of NCAA officials, Steve Shaw. He'll be checking in with us. A lot of questions, and there's always he has to go to meetings with all the conferences around the country about rules changes, basically just continuing education, something I'm familiar with in my business. It always happens in the fall when the leaves change. But section number 4, Johnny Ballpark Franks will join us. The man has had over 13,000 guests that he's interviewed over the years, and he's interviewed more Heisman Trophy winners than I believe anybody. He just interviewed Bryce Young down in Atlanta at SEC Media Days. He's about to bring Tebow on, but always great stuff with him. So as Doug makes his way onto the show with us, and he should be joining us here in just a minute. Jimmy, watching SEC Network, all over, there's arguments. Who has the best team? Who is the best quarterback? Who is a surprise team or whatever? Look, at this time of the year, everybody's undefeated, and hope is the greatest thing that you can give a fan base. But I will say that there are a lot of people that they're convinced it's just Alabama out in the West and just Georgia in the East. I think Tennessee is probably undervalued. Florida, they have talent, but Dan Mullen, he didn't like to recruit, and they've got some deficiencies. Tennessee does too. A lot of people, they love Kentucky because they've won 10 games twice in the last 4 years. You see Will Levis, quarterback, all over the place. Is he the 7th best quarterback in the SEC, or is he one of the top 7 in the country? At least 12 of the 14 schools in the SEC, they're returning quarterbacks, the starters. I mean, this is, and then there's been a lot of musical chairs too. So there are a lot of storylines that you can take on who is the best team outside of Alabama and Georgia. So in the East, I'm going to say Tennessee. That's who I'll go with. In the West, I'm going to say Arkansas. I'm going to say Arkansas over Texas A&M or LSU or Auburn or Ole Miss, because they've got KJ Jefferson back, and I think he's one of the more undervalued quarterbacks in college football. He's down about 20 pounds. So right there, your second teams in the West, Arkansas, second team in the East, Tennessee, and again, Alabama, Georgia, clearly up top. And Alabama, I think the best team purely from talent, and I think they should be really strong on defense this year. Doug Dean, AU Daily Dose in Birmingham, joins us now. And Doug, it's a great time of year. You turn on TV, everybody's undefeated. Everybody is feeling like, this is going to be the year. And the one term, the one word that was used more than any other word at SEC Media Days, and you hear it every day from every coach, is I'm excited. And I'm excited to have you on, Doug.
Good morning, guys, and not to skip past football, which is fast upon us, but let's just say, Rob, when Israel, U20, and Auburn get together to play basketball, you can throw out the record books.
Yes, you can.
119 to 47 or something like that. 76.
Give it
of course,
50.
glorified high school team. I think Bruce understands that, but it was great to, I'm sorry I'm hijacking football discussion for a second, but what a lot of basketball people believe is that the missing ingredient, as good as that season was, at least regular season last year for Bruce and the guys, the missing ingredient was a completely well Alan Flanagan if he could get back his full game. And there was at least a smidge of evidence that he may be a different guy recovering from that Achilles injury. And if he is, and you had some of these new pieces that, as usual, Pearl has in place, things could get interesting.
Well, no doubt. And I think, look, those Auburn guys are getting the trip of a lifetime, getting to see all the historic sites, the Christian sites, the Muslim sites, the Jewish sites in the Holy Land. And I think there's so much involved. And I think also each game, the level of competition will steadily increase. So it'd be fun to watch. And no matter what, it's a win-win deal for Auburn because those guys are going to be closer probably than they've ever been as a team, just taking a trip like this.
Yeah, not only that, and it's, of course, well known, Bruce's faith perspective. He's very involved with Christian faith expressions, but it's unapologetically, as he should be, devout Jew.
Yeah.
And so I think, as a retention strategy for the head coach, we hope coaches his last basketball game on the Plains. If Bruce wants a trip to the Holy Land here and there, more power to it. And like you said, I'm glad the players got to do some team building and experience all that geography and history means from a geopolitical and a religious point of view. Hey, I could have sworn just when you think you have, written the complete unabridged story of everything leading up to and surrounding and following the legendary Kick Six game or Kick Six play, I could have sworn I heard you guys report, or it was revealed, that Coach Saban, the great Nick Saban, seriously considered going into broadcasting following the Kick Six. And my question was that believed to be cause and effect, Rob and Jimmy?
Well, that John Talty said that yesterday, AL.com, because he was talking about his new book on Nick Saban. And he said, it's been long enough. And he said it, but that's interesting. But I know
my
a lot
kid, of course. Coach Saban. We would have been 62 or so at that point.
Yeah, I mean it was exactly. But I mean he stuck it out, and I agree with what Jimmy said yesterday. He'll coach through his contract. I mean he brought.
I don't, man. He might coach to 75 or longer.
Yeah,
he's that fresh.
Yeah, yeah, and
that's when his contract's up. He'll be about 76.
Yeah, we should all be so lucky to be that young physically and otherwise at 70 years old.
Hey, I love it when 85-year-olds buy a puppy. That's optimism, man.
It depends on what kind of puppy.
That's right. A lab.
Look at the lifespan.
Yeah. Not a Great Dane, but a lab. Because my labs lived to be 14, 15 years old. So Forrest was 15 and a half. That's my record, man. He made it to 15 and a half. And I'll tell you one thing.
Can I put I like to morph into interviewer occasionally when the spirit moves me. Can I put a question to Jimmy, if he can speak for the Bama Nation to a degree? My impression, Jimmy, from a little bit the periphery, is that after I don't want to say slow start, but methodical start in recruiting, that Alabama is Alabama once again, and they've had a tremendous last couple of weeks in recruiting. Do you sense mostly calm and cool, not anything resembling worry in the Bama Nation on the recruiting front?
Yeah, I would say that's a safe assumption, and you just have to go really with past results. And in particular, 2 years ago, in June, I believe Alabama was somewhere in the 60s, and then they were at the front of the virtual recruiting trend, in which obviously prospects could not visit any campuses, so they really did a good job with the technology and the video portion of it, and ended up having a big recruiting year. And they just seem to have a process down as far as the recruiting aspect of this equation goes too. And I was looking at an article yesterday or the day before in The Athletic, talking about the 10 top-rated uncommitted high school recruits for the class of 2023, and Alabama's in on 7 of them. And look at how successful Ohio State's been over the last 3 or 4 years since Ryan Day's been there, but yet they're only in on 2 of those guys. And this is the first time I can remember during the Ryan Day regime that Ohio State's had a rough month in recruiting. They've had 2 or 3 really big decommits, including the number 1 ranked guy on the list I just talked about, Carmani McLean, who decommitted from the Buckeyes a week or 2 ago, and now he's going to choose between Florida and Miami. And golly, Mario Cristobal, the splash he's made since he's come to South Florida. You know, he and John Ruiz, the mega booster, obviously they really have their NIL game going. And it looks like they're going to be a factor for just about every, big time player. So this new world we're in with NIL and the transfer portal, it's going to be ever evolving. And I think the schools that are going to be the most successful in regard to restocking their rosters every year are the ones that are able to adapt quickest to the ever-changing reality of how everything moves nowadays.
Yeah,
it's a strong point. And I wonder, it'd be fun. There may be websites that are more organized at this point I want to make. It would be helpful and intriguing as we move into recruiting, which I think we can all agree yet again, this December, quote, early signing day will have 78, maybe 80% of those who sign want to get it done then, and they get urged by coaching staffs to do just that. I guess that is helpful. I think there's mixed opinions from coaches whether they like it or not. You're still, most of the teams that recruit so well still playing for a lot in December, so it's a distraction. But if they could follow when, for example, to your point, if Ohio State has a big decommitment, they lose on a player to programs like Miami that really still haven't reestablished prominence. Yeah, they've got history on their side, but they hadn't won anything big in a while. Was it over NIL, or was it a Mario Cristobal, just the way they build relationships with young people? We know that Miami has been controversial about the amount of NIL they're going to be throwing around, but we'll be watching all the traditional top 5 powers, Alabama, Georgia, and the others going forward. And do things really shift, or do those programs step up with enough funding that when combined with what they can promise you to get you into the league, they don't have to pay top dollar NIL? Kind of like Rodney Orr was saying, there are cases in which there's a player you can get with $1 million NIL, but you don't want him because he displays something different than the work ethic you're trying to build your program around.
Well, I think Ben Troop was on the show yesterday. Number 2 draft, in the second round draft pick out of Florida, played 5 years in the NFL. He was on with us and said the U's never going to be what they were before. And they're not. You can't do the stuff that they did. A lot of things have changed, and they've had coaches come in one after the other to try to get it back. And here's another one that played at Miami, Mario Cristobal. And right now they're being aggressive with NIL, but that attorney, Luis Ruiz, that's spending all that money, I'll make a bet. I'll bet you 3 sackfuls of crystals that when he doesn't see the ROI on these guys, he'll lose interest. And that's why I'm saying that the narrative out there that NIL is going to destroy college football is a false narrative. And it's a lot of wishful thinking by a lot of people because they want to be negative. But I think the lack of ROI when you're spending that kind of money, just like any company, if you're the CEO of a company and you sign off on signing up a lot of people and paying them a lot of money and they come in and do nothing, you'll quit doing it. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I think will happen. I think we're about to go to a
Is that
break.
what you mean when you comment frequently? The free market will clean this up.
Absolutely, the law of natural selection. I mean, things
Well,
like
you
that.
think
Yeah.
about it, and we aren't deep enough into it on the timeline to have proven this, but we only need to look at the NFL. The fail rate,
Yes.
if you want to call it that, of draft picks, even the first couple of round picks.
Yeah.
The fail rate is awfully high, and so you're going to have a fail rate with these can't miss QBs.
Yeah.
I'll call
Doug,
one. I don't
Doug,
mean this to be hard.
Doug, hold that thought because we got to take a break.
Yeah.
I want you to come back and pick up on that because you were on to something, and everybody
no
needs
worries.
to hear it. We'll be right back after this break. This is Sidelines.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the Forest City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, then. Doug, you've kind of on to something before we went to the break out there about return on investment and whatnot. Mm-hmm.
Can we just stay in character and do this the whole show like Sling Blade?
I like the way you talk.
You got some potted meat up there, Rob.
Sody crackers with it. Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. The man of many talents, Rob, the legendary Rob Brown. So I was talking about you're not right. I'm telling you, the fail rate that is really nothing new to college football. I mean, I'm calling it a nasty name like that, but players come in and it's like, I guess it was Yancey the other day commented, which is dead on. We'll find out who had the best recruiting class. I mean, that Texas A&M gets the bragging rights based on what a bunch of overweight guys in their mom's basement with a keyboard evaluated, i.e., recruiting evaluators. On the other hand, if you go by offer list, some coaching staffs have done quite a bit of evaluation. So there's a correlation with high 4 and 5 stars. But the fail rate of NIL is the transfer portal going to gracefully handle that, or is it going to become? Is there potential? Of course, there is in America for lawsuits that test. Was the contract breached on the nature of how NIL gets paid timely? And I think it's been documented that almost maybe all of those NIL contracts are 1 year renewable. So it's only as good as you perform. They take the curious case of Spencer Rattler, who was one of the first out of the gate, getting 7 figures, branding himself only to ride the pine at his initial choice of college. So he's transferred to play for Shane Beamer, and I wish the kid well, but I think he just increased the degree of difficulty going against SEC defenses, and I would predict he's not necessarily going to, break through and shine this year like Beamer hopes. We'll have to see.
Well, this NIL, what everybody talks about, that $8 million figure with Nico Lama-Leave to Tennessee. Again, big print giveth, small print taketh away. And it used to be football scholarships. They were 1 year renewable. And now I think it's a 4-year guarantee. Again, if you do that with people's employment, and a big reason why people are successful when you put them in the commission side is that they're motivated to make money, because otherwise they'll starve. And I mean, let's be honest. If you work for the government, it almost takes an act of God to get you fired. And how motivated are you? If that, you get a lot of clock watchers. I can tell you, in the business that I'm in, we get a lot of snow and ice up here in Memphis in this area. You go to a day when there's 6 inches of snow, shoot, Duncan would have everybody days in advance have a plan, because everybody up there drives trucks and SUVs. We made sure everybody that needed to be picked up was picked up. That our parking lot was pretty much full. Okay. Because we had clients, and we still do, all over the country, all over the world. And it ain't snowing everywhere. You just got to have people that are motivated. I think the place for that 3-star who just like the great Coach Witt, who was under Coach Dye for so long, told me one time, I said, Coach, you're going to be recruiting bigger and faster linebacker. Well, that's great. Those measurables are great. But you know what I look for, Doug? I look for a football player. And it's a guy that wants to take somebody's head off. It's an edge rusher that maybe had a slightly bad childhood, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
And so, that won't always show up in the, maybe he's at a smaller classification high school and just buried. You can still find those guys, but it's a lot more efficient process of finding them than it used to be. I was going to introduce for discussion and monitoring as we move forward in the weeks and months ahead, some potential shifts in how the game is played. And Lane Kiffin has been, I think, he's been ahead of the pack and being visionary at thinking all this through. He's got that kind of agile mind. But take Auburn, for example. You could apply the same potential development with Tide Pride at Alabama, but I refer to the Tigers Unlimited Fund. The way it works, everyone knows, you make a significant donation, let's call it $1,200, Rob, for the privilege to then buy tickets.
Yeah.
and that business model worked for a while. It's no longer tax deductible. That hurt a little. But my question is, as Kiffin has said, that donation is at best an inefficient dollar if the goal is to put a hell of an elite roster on the field and win ball games and win championships. So what is the tipping point? If you took, Kate, stick with my example and double check my math, if you took only 20% of season ticket holders that sit in Jordan Hare 7 times a year, actually they don't, they go to 3 games that are worth seeing, and they cease their season ticket purchases, and they redirect that $1,200 to the new On to Victory NIL collective. You've probably read about it, Auburn, which I think is a long last. We're getting our act together on that. It'll take a while. Well, that would, if you add that up, that equates to a cool $28 million if my assumption of 20% of the fans, and that's $28 million annually, can be augmented by other well-heeled supporters of Auburn. And then you become a StubHub purchaser of your game tickets. I don't think that's an insane scenario. My numbers might be on the aggressive side because some people will say, I don't want to lose my spot in Jordan Hare, but to keep that spot where grandma was proposed to by your grandpa and you've got a sentimental attachment to it, you're buying a lot of tickets, 3 or 4 of which are not necessarily worth going to see.
All right. I'll just say this, and then I'm going to throw it to Jimmy, but I will say this. Ole Miss athletic director Keith Carter about 3 weeks ago, they put a pause on that $350 million football stadium expansion. And they've had a huge campaign, $1.5 billion for academics, $500 million for athletics. And I was told on the show that day that $350 million, they're going to put that into NIL. So, Jimmy, is that how you read that? If they do that, that's really scary. That might make A&M look very tame.
Well, I think in Ole Miss's case, that is what happened. But I think all of these Power 5 programs are exploring every option. 2 weeks ago, a very prominent member of the Texas Tech Alumni Association announced that this season, Texas Tech would be paying all 85 scholarship players, in addition to 20 walk-ons, $25,000 each. And they clearly had done a lot of research, and they were throwing out all kinds of different ideas, some of which you guys were talking about, in which they have been able to come up with a formula in which they basically can bake into the cake all the different expenditures that are going to be involved and how they put together their specific plan. And this guy said that not only had they calculated that they would be able to do this comfortably, that they in the future were hoping to expand this plan to the Olympic sports, in other words, the non-revenue sports, and be able to, it sounds like to me, their plan is more in line with, I think, what the powers that be wanted to see, and that is retention rather than using it as a recruiting inducement to get these highly regarded high school prospects into your school and then hope for the best. Whereas Texas Tech, I think, really wants to establish a baseline and, evaluate how it goes this year and then make adjustments as required or what they feel will be necessary.
Yeah.
And Rob, before we hit the witching hour at the end of this segment, the other X factor that it may not be a radical change, because going back when they started liberalizing the portal, that this was taking shape. But I think over the years, the assumption is you need to sign 80 or 90% of your class as high school seniors coming out and develop and grow. And I don't disagree with that. But with the portal, and we're not going to be able to stop kids from transferring because they're unhappy with the lack of playing time. And so I think that there are programs at the Ole Miss level, in some ways right now, it's at the Auburn level, that can go, as Kiffin has talked about, there's an opportunity to wait in the wings, let another school give you a free developmental year for a player. He's unhappy. You move in with a little bit of NIL and a promise of playing time. And you might see it go as high as 30 to 40% of the roster comes from the portal. Kiffin appears to be doing exactly that. Now, I'm not prepared to say that will add up to not winning.
Well, and Doug, I know we're about to go to Dan Mathews from Atlanta, but I think you're going to see a lot of that. But remember what happened with junior colleges. I mean, as Jackie Sherrill was very successful at Mississippi State, but toward the end of his career there, too much on the junior college, he probably would say, yeah, looking back, probably what we did. But man, the guy, he could develop players. He probably would have been there longer. But I think getting guys out of high school is the best thing to do. But then again, you go to the portal, at least you know that guy can do it. But Doug, look, great segment with you. You're welcome to stay on with us. We'd love to have to continue this round table.
I'm a one-arm paper hanger today, if you know what I mean.
I got you. Well, look, Doug, this is great stuff, and I think that's a great question we'll talk about a lot is, high school NIL is an issue, and then the transfer portal. You just got to get players. That's what it boils down to. But, Doug,
here.
Thank you.
Look forward to the rest of your show, guys. Football is right upon us.
Yeah, and we couldn't be happier. I love it.
Take care, guys.
All right, you too. Thanks. All right, Dan Mathews is with us now. executive producer of Southern Sports Today with Chuck Oliver, and also Chuck and Turnoff in the afternoons on 680 The Fan over in Atlanta. Dan, I've been watching a lot of your stuff going on over there in Atlanta with the Braves and Austin Riley and all. Man, when I was over in Atlanta for SEC Media Days, it's just amazing how big the Braves are. And it cannot be said enough times. The successful marriage between the Braves, it's a love affair, and the Southeastern footprint of the college football fan is something that I asked this question to Eli Drinkowitz at SEC Media Days. The head coach at Missouri said, have you tried to marry that enthusiasm of the Cardinal fan base with Missouri? And he said, it's something to think about. But, man, that's what's going on over there in Atlanta. You got the Braves playing some good baseball now, and college football season getting underway. So it must be – let me just say, are y'all talking any college football over in Atlanta?
Well, I mean, at least locally, we're a lot of Braves right now. I mean, they're 2 games out of first in the East, and just made some interesting moves at the trade deadline. So that's been capturing a lot of the dialogue, at least locally. But of course, on the Chuck Oliver Show, I mean, we're all college football.
Yeah.
If we talk anything else, it's kind of aside. We're really kind of breaking format.
Yeah.
If we do that, so. It stays usual over there, but right now, at least for another week or so, we are lion's share about the Braves, but we soon enough will be talking a lot about the Dogs and maybe even a little bit about Georgia Tech, although it's not going to be as good about Jeff Collins' team.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. You've got Georgia Tech right there in Atlanta, downtown, right on Interstate 85. High visibility. And Todd Stansberry, the athletic director, he's from Canada. That doesn't mean he's not a good guy, but I don't think he gets it. And Jordan, look, everybody there has to take calculus. Okay. We get that, but what's your other excuse for not having a winning football program when you have that kind of talent? And Stanford has had success. Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Wake Forest. These are good schools. University of North Carolina, academically. Do you hear, if y'all had a chance to talk to Jeff Collins? I mean, he's a very likable guy. You want him to succeed, but it's not happening.
Yeah, it's been a struggle. I don't think recruiting has been as good as really they thought it would be, or even I don't think necessarily it's been the recruiting that's been a problem. I mean, you had Jahmyr Gibbs in your program, and
yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs decided, well, this isn't good enough for me. I'm going to go to Alabama. So I think the transfer portal has also been what's kind of kept their program going. But at the same time, though, too, it's been what's hurt them. I mean, you lose one of your best players who now says, I want to, kind of have that Jameson Williams year. I want to have a really good year at Alabama and then vault up draft boards and be picked as one of the top, if not the top running back in the country by having a chance to play at Alabama. So I think that was intriguing for him. But I think the biggest problem with Tech has been just the disappointing losses that they've had over the last few years. I mean, the very first season you lose to, I was trying to remember if it was VMI. It was a SoCon school that they lost to in the, I think it was the Citadel. Yeah, the Citadel. They lost to the Citadel. It was one of the military institutions out of SoCon. But anyway, you lose that game, and that's disappointing. Last year, the very first game of the season, when you're thinking that this could be finally the jumping off point for Georgia Tech's program, and they lose to Northern Illinois, who in their own right is a pretty good mid-major, but they're not, they shouldn't be good enough to beat you at home. And they did. So I think that that's part of what's annoyed the fan base. I know that Collins was very much kind of the Pete Carroll mold of, all the cute slogans and sayings and social media campaigns and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, social media was a little bit after Pete when he was at SC, but you get my drift. I mean, that type of coaching, it goes well when you're winning, but when you're losing, that's the first thing that people point to is they say, well, you're focused on all this corny stuff. You're not focused on being a coach. And I know that I'll give him credit this offseason. he has not been, doing as many interviews. I'm not saying doing interviews is the reason why you're losing, but
yeah,
I think he realizes that less of him is probably better right now. And I've seen a more subdued approach by him. I think that he probably realizes this is his last shot. I think 4-8, there can be a conversation about, keep him around,
Dan, if you can, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break for about a minute. We'll be right back. I want to continue this about Geoff Collins after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Dan Mathews, Jimmy Hodge. Dan, you're making a great point about Geoff Collins. Maybe less is more in this offseason, heading into what might be his last year there.
Yeah, I mean, I think 4-8, maybe he gets a chance to stay. 5-7, I think he gets a chance to stay. Any better than that, then yeah, he definitely gets a chance to stay.
Well, look, the talent. I mean, again, with the bad thing about it is even the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs lost Jermaine Burton to the team they beat in the title game, Alabama. He caught 3 passes against Alabama in that game. So I don't know what you can expect. But Jimmy, jump in. Dan's got just a few minutes. Got time for a quick question or two?
Yeah, Dan. I just felt that when Collins first came to Georgia Tech, it seemed like the fan base seemed to be really fired up about it because Paul Johnson ran an unconventional offense, and you didn't have traditional quarterbacks playing the position. It was very option oriented. You more or less had a running back that filled that slot. You just hoped whenever you had to throw the ball that he was somewhat skilled enough so if a guy was wide open, he could make that throw. And it seemed like early on that Tech was making progress offensively, and then the last couple of years it's just kind of slacked off. And we all know what a critical position quarterback is in today's college game. Where does Tech stand there? And we know it's critical for them to get off to a quick start, but what do you see or foresee them doing as they try to come out of the gate quickly and try to build some momentum? Because as you mentioned last year, that opening game loss to Northern Illinois was just devastating. And if you can win a couple of games early, and even more specifically than that, a couple of close games early, lots of times that can build some confidence within your roster that you're going to win games like that when you run into more situations like that later on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to Jeff Sims. I mean, he's been the guy that they've gone with the last couple of years, and he was a top recruit. I mean, he was wanted by basically everybody in the country, and Tech got him. And he's had some really good moments. I think Florida State a couple of years ago, North Carolina last year, those were both really good moments. But the problem is he's been overshadowed by the really bad ones. And it's either been poor play around him, or it's been bad decisions, or really just, a pretty, just bad, scheme and game plan that have not done him any favors. So I know at least coaching-wise, they really tried to support him and that group this offseason by bringing in Chip Long And, he's going to be somebody that I think wants to try to have more of a physical attack in terms of running the football. We've seen it everywhere else that Chip has been. But I think at least individually, bringing on Chris Winkie is something else that can be a massive help as well. I mean, he is somebody that has a really good reputation in terms of coaching quarterbacks. I mean, he's done it at both the college and the pro level. So that's another way as well. You're right. I mean, the quarterback position ever since they switched from the option attack has been inconsistent at best, really, at Tech over the last few years. And, some of it is the fault of the position, but some of it is also, too, not their fault. Has it been injuries? Has it been inconsistency on the offensive line? I mean, I think all of those are things that you can point to for reasons why the offense has not necessarily been what people had hoped.
Well, Dan, you look around. I mean, if you're Georgia now, you're the defending national champion, and Alabama is being picked by most people is the best team in the country. But Georgia's not far away from them. But what the storyline on Georgia is really the same as last year. A lot of people are they're not believers in Stetson Bennett the fourth, and I am. I mean, I've always liked this kid. He's tough. I mean, he's the guy you want to get if you get in a fight, you want him having your back. I mean, he'll take on anybody. Yet, we got 4 and 5 stars in the quarterback room. They're going to get their feelings hurt. Well, let me tell you something. They're not 4 or 5 stars in college. They may have been in high school, but they're not. Do you get the sense that maybe I'm wrong, that more Georgia people have come to believe that Stetson Bennett is our man and he's the unquestioned leader? Because I think his teammates feel like he is, and that's what matters the most anyway.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you heard Kirby even say that he's got the support of the locker room.
Yeah.
All that matters. That is all that matters. I think that probably you still have, and it's the old saying, I know that some people kind of roll their eyes to it, the vocal minority on social media.
Yeah.
The people who have the loudest voice are the ones saying that they're annoyed that he's back and, give somebody else a chance. I always say that a lot of the angst towards Stetson Bennett, I think, is more directed at Kirby Smart, because there's a perception that Kirby meddles with the offense, and there's a perception that, he doesn't know how to handle the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily know why that's a Stetson Bennett problem. I think that's more of on Kirby Smart. Now, I will say this. I think because of that perception, there's a reason why Arch Manning is not committed to play at Georgia, and he's committed to play at Texas. Steve Sarkisian has a much better reputation in terms of quarterbacks, and also, too, in terms of the production that he's had with quarterbacks.
Yes.
So I think that leads into it as well. But I think that it's more than anything, he's not over 6 feet tall. That's strike one. He's not a 4 or a 5 star. That's strike two. And he also, too, was a guy that had the job and lost the job to JT Daniels. So that was something that people couldn't really understand. And he was the guy for the job last year.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see if he's the guy for the job this year, because you're going to need more offense this year if you're going to be put back in the position that you were last season. So I think that if he shows that he's not the guy that can deliver that offense, then we're going to see Carson back. We're going to see Gunnar Stockton or Brock Vandegrift or whoever be the quarterback this year. But for right now, he's the man for the job. He's got the support.
Yeah. Listen, we promised we'd let you off at a quarter till because you got a meeting. The takeaway from this is you're going to need more offense this year. So that will be a reason for a lot of competition in the quarterback room. Dan, as always, appreciate your time and look forward to visit next week. You were damn good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You bet. I'm telling you right now, that's my takeaway, Jimmy. You're going to need more offense this year. Last year, you had a defense like the 92 defense Alabama had. Jay Barker and that offense Alabama had in 92 wasn't among the most prolific in all of college football or even in Alabama history, but they won the national championship with a record-breaking defense. And Georgia had 5 first-round draft picks off that defense. Dan Lanning, defensive coordinator, is now the head coach at Oregon. But I still feel that it's Stetson Bennett's job until someone takes it away from him. But making those long throws and all, he doesn't have the arm that Bryce Young has. but he's got a national championship ring, and until proven otherwise, he is the man, Jimmy. But as a coach, would you be approaching it any different than you did last year with Stetson?
Well, I think they already have, and that showed by the fact that he was one of the players brought to SEC Media Days. I mean, the coaches are clearly going to bring guys that they feel are going to be the most significant contributors to the success of your team, or at least the ones that they're going to need to be successful and have a great season. So I don't think there's any question that they're all in on Stetson. And as Dan mentioned, there's always going to be a vocal minority out there that's going to complain about just about anything that they can come up with. And it is true that Stetson didn't look great in the spring game last year, but last March or April. And but again, it's just more or less a nowadays glorified scrimmage, and lots of those guys just aren't entirely focused. There's a lot of experimenting going on during that game with the young, inexperienced players, and also in the offensive and defensive lines. They're working with different combinations just to see if certain players can mesh with others. So there's a lot of different intangibles about a spring game that can be very misleading, whether or not you are a star in that game, or if you don't have a great performance. I just don't think it really matters that much in the end. All that matters is when they kick it off on September 3rd for most teams, and then for others, they're starting a little earlier. But all is forgotten when they put the uniforms on, turn the lights on, fill the stadiums, and turn the TV cameras on. That's when we find out how everybody has progressed.
Yeah, Jimmy, and another question I want to ask you, and this is a new segment I want to start doing, Ask Jimmy, because we get a lot of questions and stuff like that. I'm going to ask you this, your thoughts. Do you think Jermaine Burton, wide receiver from Georgia, I alluded to this earlier with Dan Mathews, transferred from Georgia to Alabama because he thinks that I've got a chance to catch more deep balls and impress NFL scouts because of the arm strength of Bryce Young versus Stetson Bennett? I know that sounds like silly to say it, but I'm going to ask you.
I don't think it was the arm strength issue. I think it was the scheme issue. Georgia is known as a power running team in their passing game. They really like to go to the tight ends. And of course, with the way Washington looked in the spring game, and I just said in the spring game, hey, it doesn't matter a lot, but when you watched him in that spring game,
it does, but I get you.
Just with his raw athletic ability, and I'm not talking about just how he performed, but just the way he carried himself. He looked like he was so much more confident. 6'7", 260. He's got really good speed. He's got a great build. He just looks like a prototype NFL tight end in the making. So they really focus a lot of their passing game on their tight ends. With the wide receivers, they tend to spread the ball around. And I think Jermaine just saw a situation where Jamison Williams left Ohio State, had an All-American season. John Mechie caught 100 passes. And he wanted to get those same opportunities to show what he could do to NFL scouts. So I really just think it was the scheme that was the primary reason for Jermaine to leave. And of course, Alabama is going to be more or less everybody's preseason pick to win the national championship. So he knows he has a chance to win another ring and also, catch a lot of passes and really improve his NFL prospects.
Yeah, and another one I got to say, again, Jahmyr Gibbs out of Dalton, Georgia, was on the roster at Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins, he's a good recruiter, but don't act like it's the same thing people say about Nick Saban. You can act the way he does. People say he's rough, whatever. Well, he wins. He can do that. Pete Carroll, same thing. Jeff Collins, Yeah, you're right. Maybe less is more. But Jimmy, real quick before we go to the break, got about 2.5 minutes. Why is it that Jeff Collins, he's been a good coach. He's been a defensive coordinator at Mississippi State, Florida, and all. Why is the Georgia Tech job academics? I get it, but everybody has academic issues. Is it the calculus? Is it being in the middle of a big city in a campus that's just right surrounded? What is it? Why can't? Because Georgia Tech historically, we know about their great tradition, but damn, they're struggling right now.
Yeah, they are. And that's really a hard question to answer because, I mean, they have, really all the intangibles that you need to win. I mean, they've, got really nice facilities. I mean, we went there in June of last year and it was impressive.
Oh, God,
but I think the one obstacle they do have, though, when you're going up against a behemoth like Georgia, is your fan base is kind of scattered because not a lot of their alumni stay in the Atlanta area. Now, a good portion do, but it's kind of like a Vanderbilt, Tulane, a lot Northwestern. Their alumni tend to live all over the country, and you don't have a huge fan base. I mean, they've got a solid core, but in Tech's situation, man, to have that core totally united, you've got to be winning consistently, and they certainly aren't doing that. I think with Collins, I think it's always a struggle if you are a defensive coach.
Yeah.
If you're a defensive coordinator, you're just geared to that side of the ball. And like Dan mentioned with Kirby Smart, there's some grumbling that he dabbles with the offense too much. And you've got to have that fine line and make that decision. Okay, I'm going to bring in a guy like Chuck Long, who's highly respected. I'm going to leave the offense to him and put him responsible with developing Sims to the player that we all know that he can be. And then let me just help with the other facets of the team. But I'm not going to mess with the offense and let Chuck Long, handle that part of it. And we'll just have to see where it goes. But, overall, I mean, they're in a conference in which there's no excuse for them not to be winning, And, we'll just have to wait and see, because this year we all know it's not a secret. His job's on the line. He's got to win, I think, 6 games or at least get to a bowl in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong, but I can't imagine the Tech powers that be are going to be patient with or accepting anything less, unless they've been competitive in every game, when they lost some really tough ones. But I tell you what, it's going to be a really, really interesting year for them.
It will be, and we're about to go to a break. We're going to be joined here at the top of hour number 2, Steve Shaw, coordinator of NCAA officials. And again, a lot of questions we have for him and rules changes and all. We're going to get him to talk about those in the upcoming season. But I can tell you one thing, get a pen and paper handy, because you're going to learn a lot. And Jimmy, I'm with you. I'm in Atlanta a lot. You used to live there. I was just down there for about 8 days. Your head spins and you go, get you an athletic director who gets it, man. I mean, you got to get that. And you get a guy that's just doesn't. And then you got a lot of your students that are not from the United States. Football to them is soccer. Soccer is a fun sport to play. It's what most kids in the South do until they're old enough to play football. Okay? That's just how it is. Ask all those parents that go broke going to all those tournaments all over the country. For what? So what? What now? We'll be right back. Okay.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB King for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Hour number 2. Steve Shaw, again, coordinator of NCAA officials, will be joining us here momentarily. And wow, you start looking around, Jimmy, at the college football landscape, and if a coach is fighting or say coaching for his coaching life, it's not like it used to be. You're making $50,000-$60,000 a year, and you were struggling, and everybody in the family was working to help, make your goals financially, to keep you on task and keep a roof over your head. Now, if a coach gets fired, he's got $10 to $20 million. I mean, Will Muschamp got fired at Florida, got fired at South Carolina, got over $20 million to quit coaching. I like Will Muschamp. I'm a huge fan of his, but it's a different world. And I just wonder how desperate Jeff Collins is, or you can just pick your coach when your coaching career is on the line. That's something that I don't think people truly grasp. So, I mean, that's a tough one, but I don't wish any coach ill. I don't, but I mean, all the resources that you have, you've also got to have an athletic director. And I mean, Todd Stansberry, being from Canada, I just don't think he gets it. And I think Georgia Tech's got so many students that have no clue. They don't know when there's a college football game there at Bobby Dodd Stadium, Grant Field. That's a great place. It's an awesome venue to watch college football. When you sit there in those stands and you see all the skyline of Atlanta, the Coca-Cola, and the Varsity Inn is across the street with those greasy cheeseburgers and the chili dogs and all, that's not exactly what you want to eat if you're trying to lose weight, but it is fun to go over there before or after any Georgia Tech game. There's just a cool atmosphere that you have over there. And any school. Then you got Georgia an hour away in Athens, and their fans are all over Atlanta. And the Georgia Tech fan base is looking around going, holy cow, man, and if you're Georgia Tech and you're trying to run promotions and whatever and compete against what Georgia's doing, it ain't easy. And when Georgia plays at Grant Field, they're going to take over your stadium. And it's very difficult to try and build up a football program when your rival, in-state rival, is the defending national champion and is very likely going to be considered to be, a front runner again this year. Steve Shaw joins us right now, coordinator of NCAA officials. And Steve, first off, let me say thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday morning to join us. We really appreciate it. Got a lot of listeners. I'm over here at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas, one of our sponsors. Got a lot of Razorback fans here. Got a lot of questions saying, you're going to have the head official on. I said, yeah. I said, I want to tell you something. My grandfather was a judge and he taught law. And he used to always say, when you go in that courtroom, grandson, you better get amnesia. The officials that I've known over the years, men like Joe Pipkin, who for 33 years officiated games in the South. I remember seeing him on the sidelines of an Auburn, Florida State game one time, and he got me tickets to games and stuff. But when he'd see you at the game and he knew I was a student at Auburn, did not say a word to me. I like that. I think that's professionalism. And I know you are highly regarded, highly respected. How much fun is it, though, getting to go out and speak to all these different conferences about upcoming rules changes and continuing education? That's got to be fun because, we're growing the game. We need the game to be good, and you're perfect for it.
Well, I appreciate that. It's great to be on with you. And it has been different as we've headed into this fall because we're back to a face-to-face environment. So all of our camps and clinics, they're no longer virtual. We're doing them face-to-face. And so it has been fun, a lot of travel, but we're excited about the start of the season. Our officials are ready. I think, the learnings of the pandemic, we've been able to now couple with our face-to-face clinics virtual capabilities in learning, using video. We've always used video, but now you can get your crew together through Zoom or other applications and really spend more time together. And so it's really good. We're looking forward to the start of the season.
Let me ask you this. I think you alluded to this on a previous appearance on our show, but if you are let's say there's a game, you're a graduate of LSU, and LSU is playing Florida. Does that preclude you from officiating in that game?
It does. We have an entire list of things that will not allow you to work that game. If you went to school there, or if you played with or for a coach, you can't work with them. If you have, a child, a daughter, son that's going to an institution, you can't work it while they're in school there. A whole host of things, and the official will select. For example, we had an official that was worked for Coca-Cola and worked with a couple of the state institutions, couldn't work there. So if you have any business relationship, there's a whole list of criteria that would exclude you. And that's what we want. We want to avoid any type view of anything that would be inappropriate to work that school. But what's amazing is officials, after you've been it long enough to be, an official in Division I, you lose some of your fandom and you really become an official. When officials watch games, they watch the officials as much as they watch the teams. And certainly they're always pulling for the officials, not one of the teams.
Yeah. I remember Tommy Tuberville and Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson at Miami. Joe Pipkin would fly down to be a referee for their scrimmages because they were trying to cut down on penalties and all like that. So it's taken seriously. I mean, I remember at the practices back when you could go down at Auburn, Coach Dye would have officials out there in the scrimmages. I thought that was really smart. Here's a quick question, real quick. What is the rule, the technical rule about a player at, let's say, the end of the game, and you're trying to get a first down with a minute left, and your forward progress, and this rule. I'm just asking you as a fan, if your forward progress is stopped in bounds, because that's such a hard call. Because these guys' legs are driving, they get over there out of bounds. Does it stop the clock technically? What's the technical ruling on that versus they just have to throw you out of bounds? Because I think just from being on the sidelines in a lot of games, people have no clue how violent those collisions are. And you may think, well, his progress is stopped, but that kid's legs are moving. He's still an active participant, isn't he?
He is. And what we look at, the judgment there is, and it's dependent on which team's trying to stop the clock. But if the offense is trying to stop the clock and the runner is, clearly driven back and driven out of bounds, then we'll keep the clock rolling because that progress was declared dead in the field of play. But you give them latitude. If that player, during a normal time, might get hit and try to continue to drive for yardage. But if they get hit and they work and now they're driving to get out of bounds, we're going to let them work to see if they get out of bounds. They still have to earn it. They have to get out of bounds. So if a knee hits in bounds, they're in bounds. But we give them the opportunity, even if they're hit and they're, and normally you would think they're starting to be driven back. But if they're fighting to get out of bounds, you give them that opportunity to get out of bounds. And if they get out of bounds, then you're going to spot the ball, not back at the forward progress point, but at the point where it goes out of bounds. So we recognize that if that player's fighting to get out of bounds, we're going to give them the opportunity, but they have to earn it.
Got it. Jimmy?
Yes, Steve, you talked about how much you welcome the change of being able to return to a person-to-person, face-to-face environment. And in regard to that, I wanted to ask you, when you're making appearances at camps now, are you able to use players in regard to going through walkthrough situations or slow motion versions of plays to maybe show what instance or what angle would constitute a targeting call and what you want to try to do to avoid getting called for it so that the players will know? How do you approach some of your clinics or demonstrating the rules at these camps?
Yeah, so really different whether it's officials or it's players. I'll start with officials. Targeting is probably the most important thing on their plate, and quite frankly, it's so important to our game. I know a lot of fans don't like targeting, but we have to change the player behavior, and the targeting rule is doing that. Last year, we averaged in FBS 0.2 targeting fouls a game, which is 1 in every 5 games, which fans just don't believe that. But that's what the data show. What we do to the officials, we teach it this way. There are 3 components of targeting a defenseless player. So there are 2 flavors of targeting a defenseless player and targeting with the crown of the helmet. If it's a defenseless player, there are 3 aspects that have to be there. Number 1, you have to have a defenseless player. Number 2, then you have to have an indicator of targeting, a launch, leap, lowering of the head, an attack, and then finally forcible contact to the head or neck area. If it is the other version of targeting, which is targeting with the crown of the helmet, you have to have 2 things. You have to have the indicator, which the launch or the leading with the head and the attack. And you have to have forcible contact with the crown of the helmet to the opponent. Doesn't have to be to the head. It could be anywhere, into the chest or whatever, but with the crown. When I talk to players, and I look at a lot of film, every targeting foul from last year that we had in FBS, here is the most common denominator of players that don't get penalized from targeting. And that is they keep their eyes up. They see what they hit. Coaches teach it a lot of different ways. But when you typically are guilty of targeting is when you lower your head, lead with the top of your head, and your eyes are down. If you keep your eyes up, it's rare, very rare if you're ever called for targeting. And that's the thing we want the players to be able to do, and not use the helmet as a weapon, but keep your eyes up, see what you hit, and then the physiology of your body will take over. And even if your eyes are up, you're not going to target your opponent.
Steve, do you ever have players come up to you when you've been officiating before a game or during a game and ask you what is considered targeting? Because I know being on the sidelines in games and all, I've seen before firsthand what officials will not put up with, and that is a bunch of jawing and fighting and smack talk and all. And you see more and more of these officials look like they spend a lot of time in the gym lifting weights, because it's like going, they'll nip it in the bud real quick. But my dad, being 94, played with the old leather helmets. He said, I'll tell you what, if you put leather helmets on them, that'll teach them how not to use their head as a weapon, and that'll teach a lot of it. But I'm just curious, though, how much back and forth there is, because you can't have too much. But if a kid did come up and ask you about targeting, would you say this is what you can do? Is because I think that would be important if they would do it, because the message has to get through, because you can cost your team by making a dumb targeting penalty.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really do is, we encourage great communication, not only with coaches, but with players.
Yeah.
If a player has a question, we're not there to coach them, but if a player has a question, especially if it's a rule or a technique, we'll try to coach them up in that situation. And it sometimes is targeting, but a lot of times it's on a technique. And you'll see even in pregame, but certainly we do a lot of that when we work scrimmages, where, if you're looking at a lineman and he's got a technique that would tend to get him called for holding, we'll talk to him, talk to the position coach, because that's what we're there. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be a preventive official. No official wants to be the I got you guy. Be a preventive official, and having that good communications. Again, you can't conduct a rule clinic during the game, but you can communicate with players on, especially if their technique is starting to devolve and they're going to cause their team to get penalized. I think good communications there. And you mentioned one other thing, I want to hit it. As a point of emphasis this year, unsportsmanlike conduct and taunting. The Rules Committee has really said that we think the officials are doing a good job with unsportsmanlike conduct as far as celebration and all that type stuff. We're not going to be overly technical. We're going to give the players, especially if they're celebrating with teammates, we're going to give them a little latitude. We know where the line is, and we'll penalize there. But the Rules Committee is being firm, is when you are taunting an opponent, when you are directing your actions at an opponent, there's no latitude. We want the marker on the ground. And those are the type actions, as you just mentioned, that lead to bad things in your game. And those things will build on you. So that's a point of emphasis, that if it's a taunting action, we want it penalized.
Yeah. And I remember a football coach in a game, golly, it's been 21 years ago. And a booster was in the ear of the football coach on the sideline in an SEC game. And it was really like ridiculous. And I asked this guy, I said, what was being said? And he said, well, the official came over and said, you better get the big guy under control, or I'm going to penalize you into the next century. And he goes, well, he's one of my biggest. He goes, I don't care. You better fix it. I like that way that you all, like a firm judge in court, you come in there dressed inappropriately or whatever, there's no leeway. You better figure something out. And I respect that from officials. And I've known officials over the years. What I respect the most is when they say, you know who Jim Tunney is, correct?
I do.
And we've had him on the show probably 5 times. I was introduced to him by one of my dad's friends, and Mr. Tunney is incredible. Just when he talks, and he says, they wrote a book about him. It was about, officiating, and they came up with a title, and he said, I really wish they would have titled the book, I Never Cared Who Won. And he speaks, when he speaks, that kind of integrity, which I believe your honor is dearer than your life. As an official, it is so critical that the fans in the stands and the people watching know that. And that is, I respect that. And it comes through, it rings true in your voice that you love what you do, but you take it very seriously. Doesn't matter where you went to school, but you take it seriously. And all you got to do is ask coaches to back me up on what I'm saying. We've got to take a quick break. Steve Shaw, we'll be back in about a minute with more conversation with you. This is great stuff. Steve Shaw, coordinator of NCAA officials, along with Rob Brown and Jimmy Hodge after this break. Okay. Well,
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, back with Steve Shaw, coordinator of NCAA officials. And Steve, again, I know we've a lot of questions that I know Jimmy and I both want to ask you, and I think what you said about they're going to get the marker on the ground, the haunting and like that, because that will. You're right. That's where the officials are out there with their 6 in a crew in a game, 100,000 people in the stands, and what is that? What is that? Bill Clark, who just stepped down as the coach at UAB. Kevin Skarbinski had a quote from Bill Clark. He said, "There are 2 things that every man in the world thinks he can do: coach a football team and grill a steak." So it's just, I mean, it's good.
Well,
stuff.
we need to add football officiating to that list. So
you say the third one is they know every call. It's just the way it is. But man, I applaud you for what you do, because man. Not only are you a hell of an official, but you are a superb communicator, and this is great. Jimmy, jump back in.
Yes, Steve. Recently, in the last couple of seasons, we've revised the overtime rule. There's been a lot of discussion about it. Personally, I have really liked it. I think when a game ends in regulation at 17-17, and then after 5 overtimes, the final score is 53-45. I would prefer the game be like Auburn, Alabama last year, even if it went 4 overtimes. It's 24-22. It resembles how close the game actually was in regulation. And I really like that part about it. And I know one negative you probably heard, and it's going to go to Iowa and Penn State last year when it went 9 overtimes. How many teams prepared to run 9 2-point conversion plays in an overtime period? Well,
it's a great.
There,
Well, I want to hit that because it's a great point you make. But the reason for the changes in overtime, extra periods, as the rule book calls them, was for player health and safety. I mean, we get into these games, players played 180 plays, 200 plays, and then we go to extra periods, and they've got extra plays that they've got to play. And we saw, and really, I think the kind of the final fulcrum in this whole change was the LSU Texas A&M game that year, and the number of plays. You could actually watch the extra periods and see that the fatigue in the players, the injury rate went up. And so what the committee really looked at, and this kind of evolved over a period of a couple of years, but so in the first overtime, it's just straight up, we start from the 25 and you play. The second overtime, now you have to go for 2 if the score, if you score a touchdown. And the idea is that 2-point play is a 50-50 play, and that could determine the game, help get it off of another tie. But after 2 overtimes, now we go straight to the 2-point play. If you think about it, the game you mentioned went 9 overtimes. And so obviously we had a lot of eyeballs on that. And I was watching it, just hoping it would end sooner, but it didn't. But if you think about it, if you go back to the previous season, when we ran an overtime period, Okay. Then, counting both teams, we were averaging, I think it was like 14.4 plays per overtime period. So one period, both teams got the ball, 14.4 plays. In that, you said it, there were 7 additional overtimes. So the first 2, it was still tied. Then it was 7 additional overtimes. In that 7 overtimes, each team ran a 2-point play. That was 14 plays. So that 9 overtime game was actually less plays than if we'd have played just one more overtime. And so that's the reason for the change. It's time to get the student athlete off the field. And finally, let me say, coaches always, they come into the season, they come into every game with 2 or 3, 2-point plays in their back pocket. Now, because of the extra period change, they may have a couple more. But people have said, I don't like it. It's like a penalty kick in soccer. It is absolutely not like a penalty kick in soccer. Penalty kick, one person's out there, everybody's standing on the sideline, and there's a goalie and a kicker. There's nothing that ever happens in the game like that. A 2-point play is integral to our game because you have 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, or 2-point plays. 2-point plays have decided games since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Because when teams didn't want to tie and they had to either kick the extra point to tie or go for 2. So it's an integral part of our game. It is not a penalty kick type play. And so I think that's where everybody feels pretty comfortable now. And after 2 overtimes, if it's still tied, it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm with you. That, and I think back to the first ever game, November 6th, 1869, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. And then we had Kent Stevens, the historian for the College Football Hall of Fame, on the show with us last week talking about that. Of course, you had 25 players on each team. It was like a rugby scrum. But when you push guys, and I remember Brother Oliver talking about practice when he took over, when Terry Bowden left Auburn midway through 98 season. He said, we got 3 hours for practice. If we get through in an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, we're done. There's no reason to just stay out there. That's when guys get hurt. When you think about if you've had an injury, Jimmy or Steve, it's when you're exhausted and your body just breaks down. And you think about Ben Troop was on the show with us yesterday, who was, 2nd round draft pick out of Florida, played in the NFL 5 years. He said, the NFL is not a contact league. It is a collision league. And I remember when I was at Auburn, friends of mine on the football team that played on the kickoff team in practice or whatever, they just, if you got hit by Bo Jackson, you sometimes debated, how much do I love football? And think about the size of the guys out there today. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and teams go 2 and 3 deep with that stuff. And there's no real break from it. And I think player safety part right there, just like the targeting. And I got to ask you, somebody brought this up. The sales manager over here at Red River Ford Toyota talked about Ray Nitschke and Dick Butkus. Were they the ones that are credited or, looked at as leading with your helmet and the violent collisions in football? When did that start? Because we know what happened with, Darryl Stingley when he was hit by Jack Tatum, the Raiders and the Patriots game. And is that when everything really began to change?
If you go back and look and you watch games from the 70s and the 80s, you didn't see this targeting move. I mean, people wrapped up, they had their head up, violent collisions, no doubt, but it began to enter our game, really in the last 20 years where, you'd see the free safety playing like a missile, no wrap up, just coming across and just trying to explode players. And it was a change that we needed to make. And so the rule still allows for hard hits and very physical play, but it tries to take the helmet out. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you another piece of information. Targeting is something we talk a lot about in our rules committee. But the Pac-12 did a study, and this is for fans that just hate the rule. We shouldn't kick out players. We got to let them play. It's a tough game. But the Pac-12 did a study over 4 years, and they looked at all targeting plays. They looked at all targeting plays that were confirmed by replay. So you get the difference in there. Targeting could be called, but it was overturned. Those that were confirmed, and then every other play. Here's what they found, and this goes to, is targeting the right penalty? Are we doing the right thing? On plays that had a targeting call, there was, and this isn't percentage, this is times, there was a 37 times more likely a concussion on that play than a regular scrimmage down. On plays that had targeting and it was confirmed, it was 49 times more likely to have a concussion on that play than a regular scrimmage down. So that really reinforces we're looking at the right thing. We're trying to change the behavior. And part of this is you said your grandfather, people have said, take the face mask off. That'll keep them, from leading with their head. We can't do that, obviously, for player safety.
Yeah.
But these helmets are getting better and better and better. And it's really a revolution, not an evolution, but it's almost a revolution in the helmet technology. So much better than they were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even. But the thing we've got to do in technique for that player is it a better weapon or is it a better protective device? We want it to be a better protective device. And let me tell you one more quick story, and because this is really a great story. And I've talked to him, and Trey Elston said I could use this story. So Trey Elston played at Ole Miss, so close to where you're from. So, so Trey was a true freshman. I think it was 2012. And that was the last year there was no disqualification on the targeting penalty. Now, Trey Elston, we cannot use the words anymore, headhunter. That's a bad word. But so Trey Elston was a striker. Okay. Yeah. He was a striker, played free safety. And so his freshman year, there was a play where a receiver comes across the middle near the goal line. They're playing UTEP, and Trey Elston lays him out, knocks him unconscious. The player is down, and 2 flags come in for targeting. But what's the reaction? Trey Elston did a chest bump with every other defensive back, players down in the end zone, injured. The next year, so we made the disqualification a part of that. Similar play, player comes across the middle, Trey Elston hits him. Again, big hit, targeting. His immediate reaction was, hands went straight to the helmet. Oh no, I'm going to be kicked out of this game.
Yeah.
That's the reaction difference. But let me fast forward to you. Trey Elston. So that was a long time ago, 11, 12, right? So he went on, never had another targeting foul at Ole Miss, went on to play in the NFL, and he was a journeyman. He went to a lot of teams. You can Google it and figure it out. Trey Elston this past season played in Canada. He's still playing the game. He played in Canada. And then just this year, he was playing in Birmingham in the USFL.
Yeah.
That's a long career. And if you talk to Trey, he will tell you, if I didn't change my technique, I'd have probably never made it through college. So as much as we dislike the targeting rule, that's the reason we have the disqualification. It changed Trey Elston's behavior, and he's still playing the game today. And a player whose technique would have probably not gotten him through college.
Well, he went from Oxford, Alabama to Oxford, Mississippi, didn't he? And
he did.
And it changes. And I know Johnny Ballpark Franks is on with us now, but I know you got to go, Steve. But Jimmy, you've got an idea. One more thing, Steve, in about 30 seconds, Jimmy, about yellow card, red card type deal for maybe we could look at that for targeting. Jimmy, throw that at Steve real quick, and then if maybe you can answer it and maybe not. Jimmy, that idea.
When a targeting call is made, lots of times, it's really close. It's kind of questionable. And I was just kind of thinking okay, let's say you have one like that, you're not really sure. You issue a yellow card, kind of like you do in World Cup soccer. That's a warning. We're going to let you keep playing. And I was thinking in 4-game segments, because you have 12-game regular seasons. If you get another one, then that's a red, and you're out of that game at the time the penalty occurred, and then you miss the next game. But then after a 4-year, 4-game, cycle, he gets to play after he misses the game.
Yeah.
But then you start over, and if you you start that cycle over again. But you got to think, once a guy has to miss a game because of two targeting, that's not going to happen again. It's going to be a pretty good deterrent.
It's a great comment. And just quickly, I'll tell you, the rules committee's talked about it, targeting 1, targeting 2, and all that. What the change that we made that has really been good is that now the replay official, it's almost like a targeting 1, targeting 2. The replay official has to confirm all aspects. We talked about those aspects earlier, or they overturn it. There's no stands with targeting. So that really began to take out these marginal plays where now they were overturned and the player stayed in the game and there was no penalty. So that's really how the rules committee has addressed that. And I would just say the commissioners, they are very firm, and we cannot back up on targeting. It is so critical to the health of our game and to the health of our student athletes that we have to stay firm with our targeting rule.
Yeah. Steve Shaw, thank you so much for taking time to join us, the coordinator of NCAA officials, and already thinking about our next visit. We learn a lot when you're on, but thank you for doing what you do for the game of college football. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to be with y'all.
All right, always is. Man, that is great. And I'll tell you what, Jimmy, I'm glad I wanted to make sure you got that question in. All right, Johnny Ballpark Franks, more than 13,000 guests. Nobody has interviewed more Heisman Trophy winners than this guy. And he's got shirts that Sam Pittman is envious of, and Johnny Cash. But Johnny, love having you on here. Went a little bit long with Steve Shaw, but I wanted to get that question in about targeting. But how you doing this morning?
Good. Hey, how about this idea about targeting? We have weird rules throughout the sports, from football, basketball, hockey. How about this? Why don't, especially for those that are not like severe targeting situations, where instead of losing a half for the next game or whatever the case may be, maybe they give the option where the team has to only have 10 defenders, for example, on the field. I don't know. Maybe come up with something more unusual. But I've just never liked the way the penalties are set up, and I understand why the rules are there. But when you're going 100 miles per hour, and with that size, with the weight we're talking about, to me, it just doesn't seem, from an athletic standpoint, fair in some cases. Now, some guys need to be penalized more than just a half or a game. And that's one of the reasons why we have rules like this.
Well, Johnny, you know what? We're about to go to a break, but you know what? You just hit on something, and obviously you made the people around you mad in traffic. I don't know what's going on, but somebody's honking. But that's what they do in hockey. Remember, in hockey, they take away a player or two from you, and watch out. Look, it gets people's attention.
The Auburn Tigers on the power play. I don't know. Just come up with something more unusual.
Well, Johnny, no one has brought that up. Believe it. That's a great thought. You've only got 10 defenders on the field. Holy cow. An offensive coordinator sees that opportunity. That's a real game changer. And we're gonna talk about that when we come back and whatever else. It is college football practice has started. Steve Shaw now leads into Johnny Ballpark Franks. Great stuff. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Johnny Ballpark, Franks, Jimmy Hodge, great stuff. Y'all probably remember Billy Bass that would be on the wall and you would punch the button, it would go, "Take me to the river."
Absolutely.
And over time, my friends up in the cabins, they've all been, the batteries were taken away and they don't work anymore. I'm thinking about getting one of those things and marketing it for Carl Childers from Sling Blade. You know, you tap on it and it goes, "All right, Dan. All right, Dan. All right, Dan." And people told me, "Brown, it'd be worse than that. We might kill you if you did that." It's so bad. But Johnny, Carl Childers from Egypt, Arkansas, texted just now and has a question for you. And he said, "Hey, what about the possibility of taking away a defender and for a second penalty, 2 defenders along the lines of hockey?" You have opened Pandora's box on this one, and I'd like for you to elaborate. And Jimmy, jump in. But Johnny, this is really interesting. My mind is it's on fire.
You know, this is my mind without coffee. So, just take that with a grain of salt. But, I mean, look, in the last year, we've learned one thing about college football, that just when you thought that you knew about as much as you possibly can about the sport, I mean, now we have name, image, and likeness. Now we have transfer portal. But with the transfer portal, you can now transfer without sitting out a year. So don't tell me that things can't be changed or done. Bowl games that used to be sacred are no longer sacred, to the point now where there's conversations out there that maybe in the near future, instead of all the bowl games at the end of the year, we could have bowl games starting the year. I mean, look, NASCAR starts with the Daytona 500, so why not, for example? I just think that now, with everything that has changed, especially in the last year and life after COVID, why not think outside the box a little bit? And because I think the fact that when you lose a player, say for the next game, for example, or the end of that game, and then the first part of the second game coming up, I mean, to me, it penalizes not only the athlete, but it penalizes the fans, and everybody loses in that situation.
Yeah, and remember the kickoff classic up in East Rutherford, New Jersey. That was the beginning of the season, a big game, opening game. And if you took some of these bowls that might be struggling and played them at the beginning of the year, it'd be a lot like what we do in college basketball in the invisible month of November, when it tries to compete against college football, which it's impossible. And there's a lot of great matchups early on, but that'd be interesting. Jimmy, jump in this conversation. I don't know if you were nearly in a collision or somebody was honking at you. Maybe it was a Georgia fan. I don't know.
No, and full disclosure, I was honking at somebody.
Get off of my lawn,
Jimmy. You know better. Jimmy, you know better. Some cities you do that and you can get shot. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but this was unavoidable.
Yeah.
There was somebody trying to make a left turn that had no business in the other lane of facing traffic. It caused somebody behind him to back about 4 cars up. About 3 of them almost got hit.
Should have called targeting
on him. It was unusual. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, but I wanted to say about this possibility of having bowl games at the beginning of the season. At least you wouldn't have opt-outs.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we have football and I just came up with this. We have football from today, 3 weeks and a 2-point conversion away on all 3 of those. We're 24 days away from college football. And look, one's Nebraska, Northwestern, that's a conference game. I think that Florida State Duquesne game, you go, what? Really? Here's the thing. Who does Florida State play the very next week, Labor Day weekend? LSU. Does LSU play on that Saturday, August 27th? No. But instead of games like that, let's have some of these bowl games.
Yeah. Well, we're 528 hours away from the start of college football season. if you're keeping track, and I can tell you one thing, I am, so is Jimmy. admit it, you are too, Johnny Ballpark Franks. But man,
but here's the thing: that there's no time yet for that Nevada and New Mexico State game.
Yeah.
So with that said, that time clock you're throwing out there could change.
Yes, it could. But as we Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle here with you on Sidelines here this Wednesday morning, look, I'll tell you right now, I like that idea of maximizing every game's value. Play some of these bowl games. You got 40 of them. Play 10 or 15 of them beginning of the season. Jimmy's right.
Wait,
I'm
going to steal that, Jimmy. That is the best phrasing I've heard to describe this. I'm going to market that and use that and take that and maybe even steal it and borrow it as my own.
No, you are given permission.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen or heard a commissioner use that terminology. Maximize the full value of every game. Why not? That's a great concept right there.
I mean, that's what I was saying. Yeah. I mean, just why not? But Jimmy's, it's just what Jimmy's saying. It's just, golly, people will not quit on you. I hate that term opt out. It is, you can't opt out in life as a parent. You can't opt out in life in anything and be successful. So you know what? We're going to see all these people that are writing the obituary of college football are going to be proven dead wrong. You know what?
Well, in college basketball, didn't they used to have a preseason NIT and then have the real one at the end of the year?
Yes, they did. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have a preseason Orange Bowl and then the real one, I mean,
Jimmy, that's right. They did that. That is a great point.
Dress it up, and just give it a fancy name and have the Orange Bowl guys allow them to maybe rehearse what they're going to do for the real Orange Bowl and get a couple of good teams in it, and get a national matchup and just get it going.
Johnny, I'm telling you right now, you're making us think. I want you to take the next thought, because whatever's coming out of your mouth today, you're on a roll. Give me the lottery numbers.
Yeah, well, if I knew those, I would keep those to myself.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Hey, no 40-minute halftime though for the preseason Orange Bowl.
Yes.
Hey, you remember I used to be associate athletics director for a historically black university, so at Tennessee State. So I've seen some 40-minute halftimes, especially when the Jackson State's band, Tennessee State band, Grambling State's band, whatever the case may be. So I've seen some 40-minute halftimes, and it wasn't the Super Bowl.
Well, rivalry games are fine for that. Southern, Grambling, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, but yeah, the preseason one though, I think we hadn't even gotten started yet, being the first game of the year. I would put that kind of at a normal halftime routine. But again, everything can be fine-tuned.
See, all these are great ideas. Unfortunately, one that I think is going to happen in the next 10 years is the one I don't want to see, and that's where we're going to have two different types of college football. We're going to have the college football where we're not talking student athletes. We're just talking about athletes representing schools on the field, and then we'll have the other side of the coin where they're actually true student athletes, where they're going to school. And unfortunately, because of what we've seen over the last 12-plus months, I think, unfortunately, in our lifetime, we're going to be seeing that type of college football.
Guys,
no doubt.
I still think that the free market will work it out. The fans are not – look, you're going to have a hard time going forward hitting people up. We talked about this earlier in the show about, hey, you've got to pay Doug Dean brought it up, $1,200 or $1,500 per ticket for that licensing seat fee, and then they're going to hit you up for NIL. You're going to have a hard time double dipping. And as much as people think that there's all these boosters out there just hemorrhaging money to pay for this stuff, there may be some, but long term, they won't do it. Because there's one thing that I know, managing wealthy people's assets for 31 plus years, family wealth management and all that, they're not stupid. People with a ton of money. Now, there's some that are. I suggest you don't let Don King be your money manager, Mike Tyson, because if you ever wondered how could someone go through $400 or $500 million, well, that's how it happens. Okay.
You know what the sad part, all these things we're talking about, because the landscape certainly changed after COVID as well. But here we are 26 months after sports got shut down back in March of 2020.
Yeah.
Did you hear any of these commissioners, anybody in these power brokers talk about how COVID impacted attendance and how we have to get those fans back? Because COVID taught us one thing when we had a football season where crowds were either the non-existent or limited, is the fact that people got comfortable realizing they don't have to sit hours in traffic going to a game, hours in traffic leaving a stadium, the fact that they can actually watch not just their favorite team, but several games on the same day in the comfort of their own living rooms. And you don't hear anybody address the fact we're losing college football fans. Students now, the Southeast is not as big as a problem as it is throughout the country. But from the West Coast to the East Coast, we are hemorrhaging college football fans. These are your future season ticket holders, and it's not really totally being addressed. And when you throw in the mix of what happened with COVID, where people got used to not going to football games, they don't want to see Alabama take on Let's Buy a W coming up this Saturday. And just because only thing that needs to be determined is the final score. Is it going to be a 7 or 8 touchdown win at the end? And so these are all these other things that need to be addressed. That to me is flying under the radar, not being addressed. And that is a big concern as well.
Well, Johnny, that was going on before the virus hit about the game.
Absolutely, it was.
The game day experience, because wherever you go, everybody's doing, virtual villages, getting the kids involved, because it's about 3 things. That's the theme of our show. Thanks, Robert Durham, John Hearn, Maury Gaston. History, tradition, and heroes. So you've got to make sure, look, stadiums, you're not going to see people adding on, making these 100, 105, 110,000 seat stadiums. What you're going to see is 3,000 or 4,000 seats at a lot of stadiums taken out in exchange for luxury seating, lazy boys, couches, press boxes moved over into the corner. But the idea that fans, would rather watch, just look, it was a fad. A lot of people working remote. Let's be honest. You're not nearly as productive as in your underwear and a t-shirt and no shoes as you are going to the office, because you get the synergy. And quite honestly, you get it. You don't want to be laying around the house all day. I don't know how people do it. It's a prescription for insanity, but I do believe the fans are going to come back. But you're right, Johnny. The commissioners of these different leagues, professional and college, better get their heads out of their butts and start making efforts to draw the fans back. And we don't want to be preached to, and we want to keep politics the hell out of sports. You better learn to
You bring up excellent points. For example, I do a weekly show in my hometown of Huntsville. So it's a short little drive. So on Mondays from Nashville, I'll make the drive down to North Alabama and do the show there. And it's mainly because, as you brought up, I could do it the lazy way. I could broadcast out of my man cave. But I'd rather be actually in the area doing a show. And it's more of a mental thing. And I think I bring more to the table when I know physically I'm actually in that location.
Well, and I can tell you, I love it as if I'm driving from Memphis to Auburn, or, if I'm going to Oxford or Tuscaloosa, wherever, there's nothing like being there, experiencing it. And as much as people think people like to lay around, honestly, it's boring laying around your house watching TV all day. There's nothing like being at the games, because everybody has these tailgates set up now with big screen TVs, beer, liquor, everything you want, great food. Man, I go to Auburn, I need tickets. I got my man Snake Scalper. He's got an official ID badge that says Snake. And I'm like, he has no last name. He's from Atlanta, but I can get any, and he always knows where to find me. You go, man, come on now. I got you covered. But there's nothing like being at the games, the road trips and all. That will always be you're right, Johnny. And but again, you want people coming back to the games. If you're having a problem with attendance, don't write stuff all over the court and the field and try to, proselytize people. Nobody wants that. We go to sports to get away from all that nonsense going on, to celebrate the games, because sports, let's face it, pull people together. There's nothing like it. Great food, great sports, great relationships. That's what it's all about, guys.
I mean, Jimmy, to what Rob is talking about, and I'm sure, you know how you look at very successful coaches, whether it was the late Bear Bryant or Bobby Bowden or now Nick Saban. You know, they don't think about the quote-unquote national championships they won as far as in big games to lead to that national title. They think about the opportunities missed in games that did not go their way. It's kind of like me. I know all of us have seen some incredible games in person. For me, I reflect on the ones the missed opportunities. I had a ticket if I wanted to make the drive from Tallahassee down to see the Hurricanes play Boston College the day after Thanksgiving in 1984. Oh. I decided not to go. So I missed out on the whole Doug Flutie comeback with Boston College over the Hurricanes. You know, there's so many games like that I don't reflect on the ones that I've actually had the opportunity to see in person. I think about the ones that I could have gone to and didn't go.
Well, he kicked six. My daughter stayed up in Franklin with her grandparents because she goes, well, none of my friends are going to be there, so I let Wilson and Max go, and I got tickets in section 42. That's where everything happened, and she still talks about it, and I wish I would have gone. There's nothing like being there. Just the drive, the road trips, the experiences. Jimmy, you know that. You drive from the North Pole coming down here, and you relish every moment of it as you drive through Amish country in southern Indiana. Get some leather belts and some baked goods, my friend.
Well, you just never know what's going to happen in a game. You really don't. I think a lot of it, though, is kind of a gut feeling. You have a feeling, man, this is just going to be kind of a crazy game. And I'll tell you a story. I was
got about a minute. I didn't realize we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was seeing some accounts in St. Louis, and I wasn't decided whether I was going to go to the LSU Bama game in Baton Rouge in 2012. And it turned out they did a documentary a couple of nights earlier of Ole Miss's 1962 national championship game, 50 years to the day. And Ole Miss had a huge victory at LSU. They went on to win the national championship. And I went to the game. It's still the best game I've ever been to in person. When Bama drove 75 yards at the end of the game, the Yeldon screen pass.
You can't. Listen, unfortunately, we've run out of time. But, Johnny, we got to get you back on very soon. You woke up a lot of passions. Johnny Ballpark Franks, people, is as good as it gets. Jimmy Hodge, ditto. Great show today. Remember, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of nothing in return. And stop in Huntsville, the hometown of Johnny Ballpark Franks, the smartest city in Alabama. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. We're out of here.